the issue of failure. The idea of whether or not you are a failure, and when you've gone through things in your life and you feel like the expectations didn't play out the way that you're hoping things might play out, you can really feel like a failure. So what I'd like you to do as a exercise is just think for a moment of someone in history who has already lived their whole life. They've lived and died, and you could definitely say that they are a total failure. Just think for a moment of someone who you could say is a total failure. Were you able to think of anyone? Someone that you could consider to be a complete and total failure? Someone from history? Yeah. Probably you're having a little trouble thinking of someone. And if you could think of someone, you might have tried to think of like one of the worst characters in history, like someone who committed genocide or something like that. But even those really bad characters in history, you can't really say they're failures because they actually succeeded, right, at what they wanted to do to an extent. So you might be having trouble of thinking of someone who's a total failure because there really is no such thing. There is no person who's a total failure. For one, it would be a bit unkind to call someone a total failure, wouldn't it? So the reality is it wouldn't be right to look at someone or label someone as being a failure. So my question for you is, why do you label yourself that way? Why do you label yourself as a failure when something doesn't go according to your plan, or you make one mistake, or you get a bad grade on a test, or you don't get a job done on time, or you didn't do it up to your expectations or the expectations of others? Why do you consider yourself to be a failure? It's a bit harsh. If it would be verbally abusive to say it to someone else, then it's abusive to say it to yourself. You should not consider yourself to be a failure. There is no such thing. There is no person in history who we can say is truly and totally, utterly a failure. So don't say that about yourself. It's not kind. To be more realistic, you're imperfect. But just because your marriage didn't work out, or you were dumped by your girlfriend, or you didn't win the race that you were running, or whatever it is, that doesn't make you a failure because you failed. The little failures in our life, they're not fixed points. The moments in our life that we don't achieve up to our expectations, these are just points like on a map, or points on a destination that we're driving through, that we're driving past. They're not your final destination. In anything you want to do in life, you have to be willing to be the fool before you become the master. You have to be willing to be the guest before you become the owner. You have to be willing to appear to be the imposter before you can be extolled as the expert. Because in everything in life, there's a starting point. When you first started walking, you didn't just walk perfectly on your first try, did you? You took a couple steps and you probably tripped and fell after 2 or 3 steps. But how did your parents respond? When you took those first couple of steps, they didn't say, "Oh my goodness, he fell after just 2 steps. He's terrible at walking. Put him back in the crib." When your parents saw you take your first steps, they rejoiced. "Oh my goodness, look," they're calling in family members, they're calling people, they're letting people know, "Look, our baby took his first steps." They're concentrating on what you did. They're not scolding you for what you didn't do. The fact that you fell is not to your discredit. It's a part of the process of learning to walk. Every person had to take their first steps, and every person had to stumble when they're first learning to walk. There is no way around that. That is the only way to learn anything. We always have to start out as an amateur. So whatever it is in life that you feel like, well, I failed at, think about the way that you learned to do the things you know how to do now. You had to fail at them, including walking, including running, including your job and playing sports. You had to be a beginner at any of these things. When you see Simone Biles flipping in the air and all that stuff, obviously her first time on the mat, she wasn't doing that. And any gymnast has had to perform that flip so many times and has fallen so many times in the process of actually mastering their technique. But that's how you must view failure. It's a process. What happened from when you were a child and we would rejoice over just you saying one word to you now, when you do 25 things right in a day, but you do one thing wrong and you tear yourself apart? What happened? How do we lose sight of the fact that everything you achieve, everything you accomplish is a miracle? Because life is a miracle. So if you're taking one step, or you're taking 55 steps, or if you're running a marathon, all of it's a miracle. All of it is something to rejoice over. So why, when we face a difficulty, when we trip and fall, why do we have the tendency to stay there and to conclude that everything must have been a waste up until this point because we tripped? Like a marathon runner that falls in the mud and just lays there and lets everyone else pass him by and says, well, I don't see the point now. I've fallen in the mud. All he has to do is get back up and continue running the race. The objective of the marathon is to finish. You don't stop when you fell and say, well, this is it. That's my story. So why do we do that in business? Why, when we invest in a business and we took out a loan and then we tried it and we tried our best and then it didn't work out and we're left owing the money, why do we stop and say, well, I guess I'm just not meant to be successful? Then we're like that runner who's just laying in the mud. No, you have to get back up and continue trying. It's through a process of failure that you eventually get to your goal. It's not you just wake up one day, try one thing, and bam, you're a success. It doesn't work like that virtually for anyone. So if you knew that when it came time to learn how to walk, and you knew that when it came time to learn how to talk, then why, when you do something very complicated in your life, like try to manage a relationship, a marriage, or start a business, or hold down a full-time job, why, when you make a mistake in those things, do you tear yourself apart like you're just worthless now? Part of the problem is the way that we're thinking. We tend to focus on the bad and discredit any good. We say, oh, well, you know what? Yeah, I might have raised kids. That's good. But that's the bare minimum that a mom can do. A mom is supposed to raise kids. That's what she's supposed to do. That's how you discredit the positive. You look at what you've done. You say, yeah, but that's not a big deal. That's nothing special. I was supposed to do that. Well, newsflash, a baby is supposed to learn to walk, but we still celebrate it. Your favorite team is supposed to win, but we still celebrate it. A baby is supposed to learn his first words, but we still celebrate it. Why do we stop celebrating? Why are you not celebrating what you have accomplished? If your business closed today, but how long were you running the business? 6 years. Celebrate that. I kept that business alive for 6 years. Me, who knew nothing about business. You will find there are all kinds of successes in your life when you open your eyes to the successes and stop discrediting them. Stop acting like because you were supposed to do it, then you don't need to celebrate it. You need to celebrate your successes. If you're a stay-at-home mom, let's say you clean up the whole house. You have two ways you can look at the situation. Let's say you clean the house and do the laundry. Well, if you're going to be the type of person who focuses on the negative, you're going to do something like, oh, well, I cleaned the whole house, but whatever. Oh, let me just sit down on this couch and I guess I'll watch some TV, and it doesn't matter. The things I do, they're not making a difference. And the family's just going to mess up the house when they come home anyway. And no one appreciates me. And really, I don't even know what I'm doing with my life. I don't know why I'm here right now. I don't even know what the purpose of all this is. And I always really wanted to do more. And as you continue to think like that, what starts to happen? Then your energy goes down. Then you start not wanting to clean the house at all next time. Then you're not cleaning the house. You're not doing the laundry. And then how does your family start looking at you? What's wrong with mom? How come she doesn't do anything? Then you start losing the respect of your children and losing the affection from your husband. And then you really start going into that negative spiral. Like, see, everyone, this is what I thought. I'm worthless. Everyone they pull away from me, and they don't want to be by me. And this really just proves exactly what I always thought, that there really is no point to any of this. And there's no point to trying because I'm just a failure. Everything in this universe compounds on itself. So when you put that negativity into your thought process and you discredit the positive of what you've done in your life, it's just going to lead you further and further and further and further down the road. Soon you find yourself, now you've lost your family, now you're living alone and you don't have the energy to go to work. And then you start to develop illnesses, and all of that negativity just spirals and compounds on itself. All because, if we go back to the start of that, after you were done cleaning the house, you said, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to celebrate it. I'm just going to feel bad about myself. It was your thought process. You have control over your thought process. You have control over what you focus your mind on and how you view things. Your perceptions are under your control. Take control of them, because think about this whole scenario from the opposite perspective. If you actually change your perspective, so you sit down and that negative thought comes and you think, you know what am I doing with my life? All I did was clean the house today. But then you stop and you say, wait a second. I cleaned the house today. I cleaned this whole house by myself. It looks really good. And I got the laundry done. And you know what? Some people might not feel like that's a big deal, but for me, that took a lot of effort to do that because I really didn't feel like it. In fact, I'm going to take a picture of this and I'm going to celebrate this. In fact, this is a really great picture. I'm going to post this to social media, and then you post your picture to social media, and then people are liking your picture and they're saying, oh, wow, that's so great that you clean your house. And they think it's actually hilarious that we're all celebrating the little things. And then you see that people are celebrating these little things with you, and you start a whole social media page where you just celebrate the little things that you do throughout the day. Hey, I did the laundry. Hey, I found a missing sock. Hey, I got the kids on the bus on time. And all the other moms are relating to you. And then your social media page, it gets this buzz, and then you get this recognition, and then you get a newspaper article, and then you grow it into a business where you're helping people to learn how to think positively. All because what? Well, you stop the negative thinking. Everything in this universe compounds on itself. The positivity will build and grow when you focus on what you have and what you have accomplished, and you focus on what you can accomplish. When you're thinking about what potentially could be good about this and how can I utilize what I have, capitalize on what I have, and use that as a stepping stone to the next thing, instead of saying, oh, what I have is really worthless. Why do I even have this? This is worthless to me. We have to change our perceptions, change the way we look at things. And you must change the way you look at failure. Failure is a part of the process. Motivation, like this is a motivational talk. The reality of motivation is that you're not going to find the motivation to get out of bed when you're in bed. You're not going to find the motivation to go to the gym when you're on the couch. It's not going to come to you magically through the air. You can even listen to talks, and sometimes you say, "Oh, you know, it didn't work. I'm still sitting here on the couch." You know where the consistent source of motivation is? The motivation is in the momentum, because the reality is you feel like doing what you're already doing. So if you're in the bed, you feel like staying in the bed. But you'll be surprised if you just show up to the gym, if you just go, then you kind of feel like utilizing the gym facilities. Maybe I'll do a little dip in the pool or sit in the hot tub, and maybe I'll lift some weights today. If you go to the gym, and if you go to the gym often, you create a momentum. You build a habit that compounds on itself. The motivation is in the momentum. When I'm looking in the mirror and I'm noticing the gains from the gym, that's what I like. I don't like the actual working out part, but the gains I like. And when I focus on the gains, it motivates me to want to go to the gym. So focus on what you have and build on a momentum. So just put yourself into the situation, just get up and go to the place that you're supposed to go to. And then you will find it's a lot easier to do the thing you were supposed to do. Sometimes this might mean, like, if you work from home or you got to do your taxes or something, it might mean actually getting up and sitting at the desk. And you say, I don't feel like doing these taxes. But when you sit at the desk and you open your computer and you log into TurboTax, suddenly you start feeling like doing more of that. Momentum is where the motivation is. You have to flip the way that you think about everything, because failure should not slow down your momentum. You should look at failure as the only possible route to success, because the road to success is paved in failure. Everything you want to do in life to get to that final destination point, you have to trip and fall and trip and fall dozens of times. 336 is the number of interceptions that the quarterback in the NFL who threw the most amount of interceptions. 336 interceptions is how many interceptions this quarterback threw. What's this quarterback's name? You probably figure he's such a big failure, I won't even know this guy. But his name's Brett Favre. He's a legendary quarterback. Brett Favre was considered one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time when he was playing the game. But he also threw the most interceptions. How does that work exactly? How did he throw the most interceptions, failed passes that went to the other team and worked against him, but he's still the best quarterback? How does that happen? Because it takes more tries to get to your destination, because you miss 100% of the passes you don't throw. By throwing more passes, he also had more successes. That's the formula. He understood, yeah, I'm failing the most, but I'm also succeeding the most because I'm throwing the ball more than anybody else. That's going to get me the most touchdown passes. And so he goes on to become a legendary quarterback. No one says, there's Brett Favre, he's the worst quarterback in history because he failed the most. No, because it's he who fails the most that succeeds the most. The path to success is paved in failure, because Kobe Bryant is the person in NBA history who missed the most amount of shots. Kobe Bryant, legendary basketball player, is the one who missed the most amount of shots in history. And right behind him, LeBron James, not far behind. And behind him, Michael Jordan, not far behind. These are the men who are missing the most shots. Kobe, LeBron, and Michael. They missed the most amount of shots. So in a way, you could say they're the biggest failures in the NBA. In NBA history. I guess that's why they're the most successful. Because the way to success is paved in failure. That's how you get there. They had to miss those shots in order to be the ones to make the most amount of shots. That's why they went down in history. So what did you lose? What did you fail at? How much money did you lose? 10,000, 100,000, a million, 2 million? Well, Jeff Bezos has lost billions of dollars on failed projects. Billions with a B. I would say he's probably lost more money than anyone has lost. No wonder he makes more money than anyone makes. Every time, this is the formula. It's he who loses the most is the one that is also winning the most because he's taking the most shots. Jeff Bezos said, I have failed dozens of times. We lose billions of dollars on failed projects. But he said this, he said, nobody remembers the failures. You remember pets.com? Neither do I. That was one of his failed projects. I don't know what he was planning to do. I guess sell pets online. Sounds like a terrible idea, but that's what he wanted to do. And guess what? It's a failure. It didn't work out, but he tried it. And I'm sure he's glad that he tried after all, because he had to do in his life, he had to go through a process of being that underdog, of failing. He was working on Amazon back in like the late 90s. He had a bookstore online, and it wasn't anything special. At least I didn't think it was special when I first heard of it. A bookstore that sells books online. But he's excited. He said, the books have more SKUs than any other products. So with all of these SKUs, we're going to be able to sell an unlimited amount of products. And other people like myself are like, okay, whatever. We don't know what you're talking about. It's a good thing he didn't listen to other people. He stayed down, kept his nose to the grindstone, and continued building his little bookstore. To the next thing you know, he put Sears out of business, Toys R Us is out of business, Boston stores out of business. All these big box chains, they're gone. And it's just him. And Walmart had to open up Walmart.com, and Target had to open up Target.com if they wanted to stay relevant. Because reality is, the process that got him there was a process of failing to get to that position, of overcoming what everyone else was saying. And now as he continues to lose billions of dollars, he continues to gain many more billions of dollars. It's a process. The only way to get to the success is to walk down the road of many failures. But there's a guarantee in life that you've never totally failed until you've given up. So if you don't give up, then you can't really say you've totally failed. Yeah, you may have lost some battles, but you haven't lost the war. So you may have sunk a couple business projects. If you don't give up, your story's not over. So right where you're sitting right now, if you're feeling like, man, I really lost out and I don't think I can go on, don't roll the credits. You're not dead. Keep going. You're alive right now. That means go. It means pick up the scraps and the pieces that are left and go again, because now you know more. You're smarter now than you were when you lost all that money last year. You're smarter now. You're more experienced. You're more wise. The failure teaches us. The past is valuable for us to go back and extract lessons from the past. You can keep going. The way to win the game is not to give up. It's mental. In your thought process, you have to have the mindset that I don't stop until I reach my goal. There is no other option. I do not stop until I reach my goal. There is no other option. Because that mental game is what wins that's how you win games. In professional sports, a lot of times the talent is evenly matched. All of these guys are good. But Michael Jordan used to try to get into the psyche of his opponents, to intimidate them. He would talk mess to them, to make them feel like it's not even going to be worth it. So why even try? And that way he could dominate them on the court, because mentally they're not in the game. But 800 times is how many times a game was won at the buzzer in an NBA match. 800 times the game is won at the buzzer. Now just imagine if that person who had the ball in his hands, he looks up at the clock and he sees he has 2 seconds, just said, oh, you know what? We lost it. And just dropped the ball. He wouldn't have won the game. He had to say, I'm going to go for it, and just throw that ball up. And you know what? Many times the guy missed, but 800 times they succeeded and won the game as a result. That's not a small amount of times. That's a lot. And that happens because mentally he wasn't ready to give up. He didn't give up. And that's how he ended up succeeding and overcoming, beating the opponents that were actually winning against him 2 seconds ago. So until that buzzer has already gone off, don't stop. You're still in action. You're still alive. You still keep going. If you lost your legs and you got to go in a wheelchair, if you lost your arms and you got to use your legs, if you're paralyzed from the shoulders down, then you got to use your head. But whatever you got to focus on what's there, what you got left, and you got to start moving. You got to start going and building on that, because everything in this universe compounds on itself. That's the Pareto law of distribution. If you start losing and just giving up what you have, and you just allow yourself to go down that path, you're going to lose what you have, including your health. The Bible says a calm heart is the life of a fleshly organism. That means that by staying calm and not allowing yourself to live in anxiety and stress, not allowing yourself to live in sadness and depression, not allowing yourself to live in anger, but instead remaining calm by focusing your thoughts on what you can control and focusing your thoughts on what is positive and what is helpful, you actually are prolonging your life. It is scientific. Because when your body is in a stressful state, it's in survival mode. So it focuses all of the energy into helping you to survive whatever situation is perceiving that you're in. So when you're feeding it all the negative thoughts and ruminating on the past and all the failures or all the things in the future that you're conjuring up that are going to be so bad, the body is in fight or flight mode. So it's sending you all these hormones and all of these emotions, and you're exhausting yourself, so that the energy is being pulled away from the energy that could be helping to build your immune system, to make more immunoglobulins and more antibodies and more white blood cells to help you to actually withstand the attacks that are coming, because there's going to be viruses that are incoming and bacteria, and you have to be able to fight off these infections. But you can't do that when your immune system is depleted, because you're living in a constant state of fear, anxiety, anger, and sadness. So calm yourself, bring yourself to a balance, allow the body to balance out your chemicals. Meditate 30 minutes a day to bring yourself back to center. Focus on what you can control and build on that. Let go of what you cannot control. What someone else said, other people's behavior, let it go. Don't allow anything to disturb your peace. People cannot control you. They cannot control your thoughts. They cannot control your actions. You are in control of you. And as you do this, by taking control of your mind, you're taking control of your body, and you're putting it in the best position to stay healthy and even to heal, to become more healthy. So give yourself the advantage. Really, in nature, failure is a part of every process. If you were to knock down a spider web, that spider doesn't just stay there on the ground and say, well, I tried, I built a spider web. I don't know what else nature wants me to do. I guess I'll just sit down here and maybe a bug will just come and just walk up to me. No, that's its livelihood. That's how it survives. So it climbs back up and rebuilds that web again. When you mess up an anthill, what happens? The ants get back to work like immediately. They're like, okay, time to rebuild. This is how nature works. You got to be like the ant, like the spider. Something came and knocked everything down. Doesn't matter if it was your fault or if it was the system's fault or if it was unfair. You don't have time. You don't have time to think about that. You got to start picking up little pieces of dirt and rebuilding your anthill. That's the only way to succeed. You don't have time to sit around and try to figure out, okay, now what's to blame right now? Like, why did this happen? No. Extract the lessons from the past and move forward. Be like the ant, be like the spider, rebuild. Just keep going. The buildings downtown that are super tall, how do they build the foundation to these skyscrapers? Well, when they dig the hole, before they pour that concrete, they use a special machine that pounds down onto the ground, into the bedrock of the earth. And it pounds down until the machine can no longer go any deeper. That is called the point of failure. When the machine can no longer go deeper. The point of failure is the strongest point on which to build a foundation. For you, your point of failure is the strongest point on which to build your life, on which to build the house that is your dreams. The point of failure, right where you're at right now, where you're like, it can't get any worse than this, perfect. That's where you want to be, where you know it can't get any worse. Now you have a predictable situation. You don't have to worry that it's going to get worse because it can't get any worse at this point. That's perfect. That's just what you want. The point of failure is the strongest point on which to build. And so the buildings downtown, you would actually see them fall over if they didn't make sure they went to the point of failure first and then rebuild from there. When you go to the gym and you're working out and you're pumping iron and you're trying to build bigger muscles, you work the muscle to the point of failure where you can't even lift the weight anymore. At that point, the muscles actually are tearing, they're torn with all the blood that's pumping to the muscle. And so when you go and you got the soreness in your muscle, you're like, oh, and then you eat and the protein in your body goes and rebuilds that muscle so that it's bigger than it was before. You never get bigger muscles by just eating and sitting around. You don't get bigger muscles by just doing nothing. You get them by working the muscle to the point of failure. The point of failure is the time at which you get a bigger, stronger muscle. That is how nature works. So change the way you view failure. Start viewing yourself. You know what, as a matter of fact, you should view yourself as a failure because it seems like the biggest failures are actually the ones who are the biggest successes. Change the way you view failure and reach out for success.